Hey guys, where'd you go? Where'd you go, guys? Huh. Things too, huh? Well, rather than going to the corn maze or the pumpkin patch, I guess I could just watch a movie.
Shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
Welcome to Video Health Show. My name is Frank, and today I'm going to talk to you about things too. And happy Halloween out there to everyone. I know I'm going to be posting this sometime after Halloween, so it's not really on time, so to speak. But even so, what I'm going to talk to you about today is indeed very important nonetheless. This is going to be harkening back to my very first episode that I did with my friend Kenny, who sadly was not able to join us today because of the COVID pandemic, and I don't really want to mess with Zoom. So I think today we're just going to do this in Kenny's memory, even though he's still alive. And we're going to talk about this because it also has something to do with the season. Let's jump right in. The very first thing I'll do here, as always, is read a little bit off the box over there. But things too. Twice the creatures, twice the terror. Twice. They got to make sure that they really get all of that two nonsense out of the way. We're following a lot of the same themes as we did in the first one. It's formatted the exact same way. So I'll go ahead and read the description here. An unsuspecting pizza delivery girl spends an evening with a strange horror novelist. He tells her two ghastly stories. The first is about a ferocious monster that foils the sinister plans of a plans of the participants in a bizarre love triangle. And the second story finds a fashion photographer being stalked by a serial killer. Is it human or is it monster? If the pizza girl can solve the mysteries in the stories, she will survive. If not, the monsters in the cellar await her. So yeah, this was produced by Sterling Entertainment, a bovine production, starring Angela Eads, David Hussey, Rich Ward, Margie Ray, cinematography by Craig and Cardone, which I believe was in the first one. Music by Adam Carville. Who gives a shit? This was a Cinematrix releasing on VHS in 1997 from Ventura Boulevard in Woodland Hills, California. Where do we begin? Like I said, this is a very similar film to the first one. Not a lot of difference in terms of the format. It just seemed like they learned a lot of lessons from the production of the first film and kind of worked into the idea. It was a little higher, or should I say much higher production value. That's not saying much, considering the first one was basically shot on Handycam VHS. It wasn't terribly well done in the sound department. There were a lot of issues with the sound again, but that kind of made it charming, as you can imagine. One of the very first things you notice when you get into the movie is this big cat sound effect they're using for Monster Cam. They have a Monster Cam, which I know you've seen in other movies before, where they show the shoot from the POV of the monster. But in this one, they just keep using what is obviously like a very canned tiger sound effect, or a cat growl or snarl. You've heard it before in 1,000 movies and terrible productions, so it's no surprise that they use it here, but it was funny to note. Just after we get a little bit of an intro with what I assume are the things in the basement that it describes from the back of the box, we kind of get this introduction to the monsters in the basement to some degree, but then we have the pizza girl ringing the doorbell of the gentleman who writes these novels.
Well, at last, I was beginning to think I'd been forgotten.
Oh, then this is the right address. I've been looking everywhere.
Nothing personal, but these places usually send boys.
Basically, she goes in, and it kind of is set up like a really bad porno in the beginning, but it leads into what isn't terrible acting compared to the first film.
Come on in, out of the cold.
I'm so sorry it took so long. I've been driving around for 20 minutes.
Oh, that's quite all right, my dear. This seems to happen every time I order pizza. Looks like you found me out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Keene. It's just I didn't recognize you.
Well, there's no reason you should.
Oh, that's not true. I've read every one of your books. I'm forever haunting bookstores looking for the newest Things collection.
In the scheme of things, it's like TV grade. It's kind of soap opera grade. No better or worse than that, really. There's a lot of weird camera work going on. There's a lot of weird transitions. There's this transition used of the pizza box, but they're all cut short.
Let me get some plates.
So, you fancy yourself an author, do you?
Like everything isn't smooth. It's just gone. It cuts, and then there's no space in between scene transitions. Like there's no trail off at the end of a sentence to say an empty sounding room and then dialogue. It's cut at the end, the very end of the sentence, and then into the next line of dialogue into the next scene. So the editing was not very professional, to say the least. At least they seem to have hired professional actors this time. The story, the feel, the way it kind of seems, if anybody watched Are You Afraid of the Dark as a kid, it kind of is reminiscent of that in the quality and the way they shot it. It just feels like an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, honestly. And in a lot of the props. Again, better than the first one, but only marginally. We get into the first story, which seems to be amidst a love triangle, where this wife is unhappy with her husband and she's cheating. We get into the very opening of them talking about how they have to be careful and how she wants to get rid of the husband.
You are never going to have to leave me again.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to kill him so we can be together forever.
Sure, baby.
I mean it this time.
She's come up with this plan that she has purchased this really strange Chinese monster. The way they bring it up is very racist. It reminds me of Gremlins. They probably got the idea from Gremlins. Really, really crappy idea. They get this monster, I think they say from Chengdu. Her whole plot is to have this thing in a pet carrier and then to let it out at the appointed time to kill her husband.
I set it up. It's going to happen tonight. He sent me something that he thought might help me with my domestic situation.
Something?
From the jungles of China. It's a place called Nangcheng. He found this thing in the bush out there and rushed it to me.
Not a great plan. I mean, there's a billion other animals that you can get that can kill people or do a lot of other things, but she chooses this. I guess because a movie had to happen and somebody had an idea that they had to get onto paper and then somehow shot. Oh, it's not the monster from Chengdu. I think it's like
Nangcheng.
Or something. She brings this monster out in front of her new boy toy, and the guy doesn't even really look at it. She puts this pet carrier, this a regular cat carrier, right behind the dude, and he doesn't even think to like turn around and look at it immediately. He just is like letting it chill there. It doesn't make any sense. But he eventually turns around and goes to stick his finger inside of it.
No, don't do that.
And the woman's like, no, don't do that. Well, she already told the guy that it was something that was meant to kill her husband. So the first instinct of this guy is to like stick his finger in there, which is stupid. It's just stupid. No one would do that. I mean, if you do, you deserve to lose your finger. So to demonstrate this monster's power, the woman then sticks a metal pen, into the cage. And the monster doesn't even like snap the end of the pen off or anything. It just bites it a lot, like a dog would have. If a golden retriever or like a German shepherd got a hold of this metal pen, it would have put the same amount of damage to it. So it's not really that intimidating. Really, you could say that a dog could have done what this thing does. So why does she get a dog to kill the guy? Which is more plausible than what she's doing right now. Meanwhile, the pen's made of metal, and the cage is made of metal and plastic, so couldn't the monster just eat out of it? Or could the monster just bite its way out? Why does it decide to like accept its fate and stay in this piece of crap cat carrier? I don't know. By the way, it said Animal Taxi, I think, on it, which used to be like, I think, a brand or something. They don't mind like shooting brands in this film. It's something they don't even think twice about, which, I mean, if you know anything about production, usually you have to contact the companies that are involved in some of these things. Maybe Pet Taxi wasn't one of them, but it used to say that above a lot of cat carriers, which is kind of stupid. So the woman goes over the plan with the boy toy, and he's kind of trying to dissuade her a bit, saying it's probably not the best bet.
Well, I just wanted to give you one last chance to reconsider this thing. Even the best laid plans can blow up in your face.
Because it's very complicated, which is, she's right. Everything he says is right. There's this one part where she says it's like a flawless plan because there's this nosy woman, old Mrs. Potter, that lives across the street, and she sees the whole block, and she'll definitely vouch for everything that goes on in terms of people leaving or coming home or whatever to the house.
You leave. Then I leave shortly thereafter. Both departures to be observed by old Mrs. Potter, the town snoop. She just watches everything from her throne on her front porch.
So we'll have an alibi when that thing got...
Does Dexter in?
Old Mrs. Potter, and I love they do it like a zoom in on old Miss Potter chilling on her porch. And she's giving this like disapproving look, which is too stupid, too funny. The wife is mentioning how the husband immediately comes home and would sit down in his easy chair, even though it's a couch.
When he comes in, he just makes a beeline right for his easy chair.
Not the same thing. He would not even notice if she were dead. They did a little clever scene here, which I actually, a couple little vignettes, which I appreciated.
He wouldn't notice if the room had been painted red, or if dry rot had set in. I could be lying dead on the floor in front of him and he wouldn't know it.
But this explanation is going on far too long. I think it lasts for like solid 4 minutes, which in screen time feels like forever. But then to just be sitting there and talking to one another, you know what I mean? It's so boring. Wife and boy toy share the least convincing kiss I've ever seen in my life. It's actually kind of awkward to watch.
Oh, go on, get out of here.
So I don't know how I'm supposed to feel the chemistry between the two, but maybe that'll play him later. The cinematographer here, what's his name? Craig Incardone. I give him a lot of credit, A, for effort, but his camera angles are awful. He's choosing really weird shots through things.
Listen, babe, there's only 2 things you need to remember. Pina coladas and Saint-Tropez, because that's where we'll be this time next month.
Yeah, and I get to be your trophy boy.
Under things, he's switching angles from Dutch angle to other Dutch angle in the midst of a shot. It's kind of trying to be creative. It's better than the last one, and he does some decent movement in some places, but he really just goes out of his way to try far too hard, it looks like. The boyfriend tries to dissuade her from doing this. He tries to say, don't do this. It's probably not a good idea. He's actually shown himself to not be a terrible person, but he does it. He lets her go through with it anyway, so I guess it's not really... He can't do it. He can't stop it. He can't stop her if he wants to. He's already a homewrecker, so I guess he's not the best guy. But at least he's trying to tell her, hey, you probably shouldn't try to kill your husband, not only because it'll probably backfire or go wrong, but it's a bad idea, so just probably not do it. So he's not a 100% terrible guy, at least. By the way, part of the wife's plan is to use chutney to lure the monster out of the cage and to kill her husband.
I trained it to love chutney. Here, look.
Jesus.
I don't think it's ever explained why chutney would work, and it's so random. It had to, somebody had to have just tried chutney for the first time on set, probably the director. It was like, we gotta say it was chutney. I don't know why chutney would work, but that's what they say, chutney. This monster, this Chinese bush monster loves chutney. Who doesn't? I agree, but it's so stupid. The sound design for the monster sounds like a guy making growling noises through a pipe. All the sound design was in-house. They didn't use any Canon sound effects for that, at least, so I give him credit. But it's obviously the dude like making like noises through a pipe. It's or through like a toilet paper tube, or something that like makes his voice echo. It sounds so stupid. It's so bad. So the wife is with these two, so the wife is now alone, waiting for her husband to come home. And out of nowhere, one of the only things that caught me by surprise in this story was these 2 robbers out of nowhere come in. They just walk right in.
What the hell is that shit? I mean, it smells worse than a toilet in the diarrhea ward.
Who the hell are you? And how did you get in here?
Well, wouldn't you know it? We just found ourselves in your backyard and thought we'd mosey on up here to see what the old homestead looked like.
Yeah, your yard is beautiful.
There's no glass breaking, there's no explanation, there's no nothing. They just show up out of the clear blue and start harassing the wife. And they're unclear in terms of what they want. They're unclear in terms of why they're there. They don't seem to have weapons. They certainly seem menacing enough. It's hard to see what kind of threat they really pose to this woman, especially since we know she's a murderer, so I'm not exactly sure why we would care what happens to her. She's going to be a murderer. She's confessed to wanting to plot to kill her husband. That should have been enough for them to really... That doesn't make the character sympathetic. I don't necessarily know why I should care that this this now group of robbers is going to be there and do anything to a person that we know to be terrible. They cut a couple times up to the creature, by the way, in the cage, and they show it from behind what looks like cardboard cutout. I think they tried to cut out holes in a piece of cardboard that looked like the side of an animal cage, like the pet taxi that they have. But they lit the monster from the inside of the cage, which doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why the monster would have any lighting on the inside of this on the inside of this cage. It makes absolutely zero sense. It's really funny. So the wife robber brings misogynist husband robber a beer so he can get started with his robbing.
Here you go, darling.
Now, down to business. Jeez, this shit's all over the place. I'm gonna take the nickel to her and see what you've got to offer. Don't get up.
It's so dumb. Like, he seems as though he can't really get his job started unless he's got a beer. That's the way they make it sound. He's like, now I can get started. Wife's like, here you go, honey. Crack this cold one. It's delicious. It's terrible. I mean, I guess we'd expect nothing worse from this terrible group of crap people. Some of the camera work that they shot in here, I guess they were probably trying to work with multiple cameras at once. I don't really know what the deal was, but they kept cutting to certain shots that looked like they were straight up using just a VHS home camera. Some of the shots that they cut to, I don't know if they were reshoots or what. Like, they might have been. They might have rented a camera for the days, but then had to do some reshoots when they realized there were holes. And they might have just used a VHS Handycam or something to shoot the rest of it, because it was about 96. So I don't think that there was real digital options yet. You could definitely tell that they spliced in a couple shots from a Handycam VHS. So wife is tied up on the couch with a gag in her mouth and everything, because these people need her to now be incapacitated to search the house, even though, again, no weapons, don't know what they're even looking for. They never state their motives or any of their driving factors for being there. I guess they're just menacing. They just need to be there because the plot has to have something happen. But she's sitting there and she's like, just moving back and forth. Instead of like doing anything that would really make a difference to get her out of the situation, she just continuously makes mumble noises and moves back and forth.
Oh, honey, don't get all worked up like that, all right? It ain't gonna do you any good.
That's not going to do anything. And the woman's sitting there watching her. Like, the robber lady is sitting right next to her. So I don't know what she would plan to do even if she was able to get herself free. I know in the beginning of the whole ordeal, hit the guy in the chest or stomach pretty good with an elbow. So she was somewhat capable of getting away. But after that, like, he lightly grabs her and then, like, that's it. I feel like she really could have fought harder for herself to get out of the situation. And I guess they just needed to show that she wasn't cool with being there like that. But I guess, I mean, at that point, I would just try to sit there, not move a lot, and try to get out of those restraints, but not make it obvious that I'm trying to do it. Or maybe conserve my energy for a time when it would be more, I don't know. She was probably just panicked. I guess that's the character motivation. The director said, act like you don't like this and act panicked, and she did it. So the wife tries to explain that she's going to set this timer that's going to open the cage, but she doesn't explain how, because you need to pinch those cages with your fingers, and she puts a sunbeam egg timer on the front of the cage.
Don't let me down.
And that just automatically opens the door. I don't know how, they don't explain that. It's just taken for granted that as soon as that thing goes off, and by the way, when the alarm goes off, it sounds like a car alarm, or like a car horn. It doesn't sound like an egg timer, and that somehow lets the little beastie out, and which is the laziest, stupidest crap. I mean, you could have thought of anything. There could have been some Rube Goldberg machine that she set up, which would have been really obvious to the husband, I guess, unless he's really that stupid. But yeah, egg timer. So when the monster gets out of the cage, it looks like he's just attacking a bunch of wet rags that were covered in food coloring, red food coloring. And then they like slapped a bunch of jelly or some crappy ketchup on these people, and it's just the worst gore makeup job I've ever seen, mixed with just wet white rags covered in red crap. Like the special effects, they weren't even trying. They didn't look up any. They didn't have any books. I mean, obviously the internet was young, so they didn't really have a way to look up how to do these kind of things. Now you can just look up life hacks, or you can look up ways to do these effects cheap and easy relatively, but because YouTube will have it, or somebody will have that on their website. But it's just crazy. These people didn't find like a book on special effects, which I'm sure would have existed at Barnes & Noble or any of the bookstores that have since gone out of business. And this monster, finally, when we get a full view of it, it's the goofiest prop I've ever seen. I mean, at least they tried. Kudos to them for what looks like they made like a handmade prop. And it's even crazy. The eyes move. Like they got articulated eyes inside this little puppet. So I mean, A for effort, but it's so bad. It's so terrible and funny. I was laughing so hard when that thing came on screen for the first time. You got little glimpses of it. It didn't look good, obviously, before that, but once you finally saw it, and it's only like yay tall, it's about the size of a gremlin. It's so stupid. It looks like a really, it looks like a dumbass alligator, but like standing up on its legs. It looks like Alligator from the Garbage Pail Kids, but worse and pygmy. It's so shitty. There's this one little shot where the monster is kind of like running throughout the house about to kill somebody else, and they got like a hard uplit shot on this monster. Like he's got cascading hard light coming from below him in front of him in the foreground. Not too many people have one of those lights just sit in the hallway. I guess it was for dramatic effect. The husband comes home just after the two ineffectual robbers were murdered by a little green monster guy who's from China. He sees this little monster. He doesn't seem too disturbed or shocked or frightened by it, and just throws like a cardboard box over it. Let's just count back. This monster has now been stopped by a plastic pet carrier and a cardboard box, but we've established that it can chew metal pretty well. I don't know about through metal, but can chew metal up pretty well. So, I don't know. And it seems fairly aggressive if it just murdered two people. So I don't understand exactly why it allows itself to be trapped. I don't know why it allows itself to be trapped by a cardboard box. Not a lot of consistency in the sense of all of this. Then all of a sudden, the husband starts like tickling the monster. No! You know it just killed two people, but you're tickling it, so that's when you kind of know something's up. And I was a little suspicious there. Turns out, shocker, the husband knew about the monster in his own closet the whole time.
I know about him, Stace. Up in your room? I've known about him all along. All those nights you're out supposedly with your women friends? We got acquainted. I call him Theo, by the way. I don't think you bothered to name him.
We established in the very beginning that this woman was hiding this thing not all that stealthily in the closet in the bedroom. It's not like it was even in somebody else's house. It wasn't in a hidden cubby hole. It wasn't in the garage. It wasn't in the backyard. It was in the It was in their bedroom walk-in closet. If the husband would have not seen it, he might be the dumbest person on earth. So he doesn't really care about the two dead bodies in his house. He obviously cares that his wife was plotting to kill him, even though he knew the whole time and was just letting it happen. And then we find out that her boyfriend was also completely 100% in on it. And not only was he in on it, he is with the husband.
Obstacle in your way, preventing you from enjoying the good life. Was Sam here? Or someone like him? I've changed too now, Stace. I've grown away from you.
Which I find to be very progressive. I was shocked. That was the most shocking thing in the whole movie, that it had a progressive enough storyline to add a gay couple.
You stand in the way of our happiness.
And I really liked that. That was the only thing I liked. And it didn't even, like, it was just a thing, and it was awesome. I loved it. I did not see that coming. That's the only thing I didn't see coming. I kind of saw some of this other stuff, like they were really setting up in the beginning that this wife was going to get this was all going to go wrong for her. The boyfriend said so. I mean, it was all kind of just telegraphed from the very beginning. The fact that that this monster was known about the whole time by both of them, then that's maybe why he knew he wasn't going to get bit in the very beginning when he sticks his finger in the cage. So there's some good things, I guess, they established, and maybe because he wasn't so frightened, you should have known. I don't even know if they thought that far ahead when they wrote it. Yeah, the only really good part was the fact that they weren't afraid to be that progressive in the late 90s, which is awesome. Other than that, though, that first story was kind of bunko. I enjoyed it to some degree only because, you know, they set it back up on the wife at the end, and then she gets killed by the monster. Obviously, they let it go, and that's when it can escape the cardboard box. As soon as the husband and boyfriend leave, it's able to then get out of that cardboard box and then goes and kills the woman. So it was very allied with the husband, even though, I mean, it seemed to like the woman too because the woman bought it originally. So I don't understand how he coaxed it. And again, coming back to the chutney, the husband. Hey Phil, I told you not to pee in the middle of my scenes, Phil. Phil, what are you doing here, Phil? Sweet Jesus, Phil. I gotta wait for all the water to stop making noise. Oh, God. Now I don't even know where I was. You can't make piss quiet. Why don't you close the door? Okay, so all in all, I'd say that this was written at least way better than the very first movie. The first movie, this was written in general better than the first film, especially the first story in the first film. Both of those stories were so bad. And this was actually, at least they tried to write a bit of, they tried to pull an M. Night Shyamalan and do a little bit of a twist. I mean, again, it was a little predictable. You know, maybe not for everybody. I think it was at least showed a lot more effort than the first movie did in this first story. Then we transitioned back to Pizza Girl on couch with the writer. I can't remember their names. Who cares?
Something like a good revenge piece, hey Dana?
I liked it, but I have to confess, I figured out where it was going. I guess I know your style too well.
Oh, she's basically saying what I just said. It was predictable. She knew, but she also established beforehand that she was a very big fan of this writer, that she knew who he was, and that she had written, or she at this point she said she's read so many of these mysteries and so many of these horror novels that she kind of sees where they're going, and that nothing really surprises her anymore. And so, you know, the writer's a little bit dismayed by this, but says, "Okay, here, let's see what you think about this second story."
Maybe I should go.
No, nonsense, my dear. I promised you another story, and you shall have it. Now then, this is one I call The Thing from the Lab.
And I can tell you right now, the first one was better. We open up on the second story in a lab, black and white shot, with a scientist, you know, working behind his bench. And I thought, for just a split second, that this was a color grading problem. I thought my eyes were either off, or I thought that maybe they messed up the color grading. But no, they took out most of the color and meant for this to be a black and white scene. In one part of it, you can kind of see they left a little bit of red in. I'm not sure if it's because they knew what they were doing or they didn't, but they color graded this out for... And they start, by the way, in a flashback. Instead of establishing that there's a character, we start in a black and white flashback, so we have no idea what's going on. We get this man, and then his daughter comes in. His daughter's got dead eyes. It's very creepy. That's the only thing I could think about. I could barely even pay attention to them speaking, because all I could see is this little girl and her dead eyes. I don't honestly know if the director was telling her to go motionless or if that was the actress that they hired, but this girl... After we get out of this black and white flashback, we get to real time. I'm not gonna lie, throughout most of this story, I wasn't sure who the pro and antagonists were exactly. You get more of a sense of it a little bit later on, but you weren't sure who you were supposed to care about or follow, because there's a number of murders that are going on in this town. They establish we're following at first this character that doesn't seem to have a lot to do with the story, but then we find out is the main character. She's a photographer.
What are you staring at? I'm freezing over here, Andrea.
Angela.
And she's working with a scantily clad woman who I guess is doing a photo shoot. And they're talking about how there have been a number of murders in the neighborhood and they have to be careful.
Your head is totally not into this. What are you doing? Thinking about that West Side slasher or something?
I got a terrible feeling. There's something really unusual about these killings.
Yeah, they're happening right down the street from this place, and I'm still working here. That's what I'd call unusual.
The story just felt way more scattered. We witnessed a couple of these murders. You don't see a murderer, you just get their point of view. The murderer just seems to murder a couple unconnected people for some reason. This first murder of what looks like an actress, because headshots fall. Down on the ground. This guy murders this woman, or this person, we don't know if it's a man or woman yet, murders this woman in broad daylight. And then has enough time to like suck her blood out with a machine, hooks up to all this. And it's in, obviously, a populated area. It looks like it's right in front of an apartment building. So there must be people around. It's not like this is in the middle of Wichita, Kansas, like somewhere in a field. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood. I don't understand how that happens. I mean, I guess it can, but that's just so unlikely. I mean, unless the murderer is 100% brazen and really meaning to hit their target, like, with purpose, I don't know if that's something that happens. I have a feeling it happens more at night, not knowing literally anything about it. We get to these two cops in this all-black void. It's not a room. It's not anything. I guess they didn't have the money to get into a room that looked like a police station, so they just used an all-black void with a top light.
This girl was murdered. She was my daughter. I want you to find the killer.
Sherlyn Peters. I'm familiar with the case. The West Side slasher did this. He's your killer.
Then find him.
I'm only a sergeant. I'm not a homicide detective.
You would be if it weren't for those 3 brutality charges?
Look, I don't know what type of game you're playing.
What game are you playing, Mr. Stone?
And the only ambiance you get is this one cop is speaking to the other cop who I assume is his boss, and the boss is smoking a cigarette to kind of give the room some more ambiance. We get this one shot of a cop with a crazy hairdo. I don't know if it's a mullet. It looks like he has hair all around the sides and long in the back with a shaved top of it. But I think he might have been losing his hair and it looked like it was combed over. But the VHS was so bad, like the quality of the VHS was so faint that it just looked like he had literally shaved the top of his head off and left all that side hair. And he was just the most gross looking dude. Like, I'm sorry for this guy. I'm sorry to say that. And this guy was gross. Like, he just, everything about him. I don't know if it was on purpose that they made him look like that or that's the way he chose to look. He's sitting there kneeling over a chalk outline of the murdered woman from earlier. Or excuse me, at first the guy is like this ugly, disgusting guy. Is the disgusting guy sitting there like doing the thinker over this dead woman's body. And then it transitions to the dead body being gone. He's still kneeling there, so I guess he was kneeling there the whole time, like for an hour or two, while they did all this work and then cleaned up the body. Or maybe he just liked that spot, so we went back to kneeling. We get a lot of, we're blessed with a lot of really terrible ADR in this film, which had me giggling, especially in the second story. It was pretty bad in the first, but it got even worse in the second. Oh, they did a dead body reveal snap zoom that made me laugh my ass off. The sound is so terrible. Whoever mixed this, whoever edited it, whoever shot it was just I mean, the sound was terrible. there were a number of points where the dialogue was below the ambient music and other sound effects, so you couldn't even hear what they were saying. The music was louder. All you could hear was the music and...
Angela?
No, I don't think so. I can't speak for Heather. I didn't know her that well.
Right.
I don't know anybody that well.
Okay. Okay, well, good. If you think of anything, let me know. So, the woman's getting back into her studio. This dude is there, the African-American cop from earlier, is in her place.
I know how this looks. I can explain.
You had keys. You killed her.
I didn't kill your friend.
You killed Heather, you bastard!
She's obviously scared and wants to. I think she says she's going to shoot him. He says, "Oh well, how are you going to shoot me in the back?" And he turns around. So obviously it wouldn't be self-defense. And then he starts taking his clothes off. He says, "It's going to be hard to explain this."
You shoot me in the back and they'll charge you for murder. How are you going to explain my body with no pants on, huh? Huh? I'm sure the police would be very understanding. Instead, this naked guy broke into my apartment with no priors. Well, actually, he had a key, so I had no choice. I had to shoot him in the back. Is that what you're going to say? Huh?
And then he's like half naked, and then he starts like getting back dressed, but never puts his shirt back on. He just keeps walking around and like talking to this woman with his shirt off.
That's Peters. Peters. Look, I didn't mean to surprise you like this.
And then he keeps like looking in the mirror and looking at himself with his shirt on. It's just absolute madness. I guess this guy, I don't know if that was a direction or if it was something he chose as an actor. Obviously, they somewhat hired him for his physique. His acting's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. But he says, "I'm going to go look around a little bit more," after he's done talking to the photographer. But then just goes back and looks at himself in the mirror again. He doesn't go look around. He looks immediately right back in the mirror at his shirtless body.
You've been a great help. Now how about let me look around here?
And I think he eventually goes back and puts his shirt back on. We get some more monster cam in this story, which I guess is great. I mean, I don't hate it. I think it's great if used correctly. They kind of used it in two different movies, so I don't know. It just seemed a little overused in two different stories. So the photographer goes to ask questions of this other guy. He pops out from behind a shelf. I think his name's Ernie. I don't know why the hell he was hiding behind a shelf.
Hello? Ernie?
Hello.
Oh, God.
But he says some stuff. It seems like the photographer gets onto the game really quick and realizes that he's the murderer of that woman. He has her pictures from when they fell out of her. He has her headshots. So it must be him.
What?
He says, "Now just stay here, capiche?"
Capiche? Hello. I said capiche. Thank you.
And she doesn't say anything, and he goes, "I said capiche?" Which is the weirdest line of dialogue I've ever heard. If you have to reiterate capiche. So the photographer runs away super duper slowly. Even though she's threatened by this guy and is probably going to get killed, she runs so daintily away from it. It's ridiculous. It's so unrealistic. You'd definitely be sprinting away from who's a supposed killer. And the cop, the young cop comes back out of nowhere. They're in this, what looks like a parking garage. He appears out of nowhere. And by the way, the woman's running from one side of the parking garage to the other, which means she's running away from where she was with the guy who's trying to kill her, right? And the guy appears in the opposite direction. Yeah, he must have teleported from A to B to come back to where she was. Made absolutely, again, you gotta think of some continuity here. That was a real continuity error. And then the cop pops out of literally nowhere. He wasn't supposed to be there. I guess he had a hunch, but they don't explain it. And he just pops out and he kills the guy.
He's dead.
And then we're back in the Black Void with him and his boss. There's a part of this scene where there's thunderstorms going on, and it sounds like there's car accidents happening outside. It doesn't sound like a thunderstorm. It sounds like an earthquake hitting or something like that. If it's supposed to be thunder, it's so badly done. The sound design is terrible. We're back in the black and white flashback, and we find out that the dad was working with monsters in this lab, and there's this little monster in this like cocoon that you don't ever really see. He tells his daughter he's going to get rid of it, and he smashes it with his fist. He just takes his hand and smashes this goopy, gross thing. And why would you do that? You had so many other things you could have killed it with, and you just smashed it with your hands? It was so gross. So bad. So the photographer calls the cop, who's, I guess, it looks like he's at his desk, and he calls, it's on one of those old school, like 90s flip phone cell phones. He picks it up, and then they pull out, or they snap out, and all of a sudden, instead of being like at a desk or something, he's taking a shit!
Rich, it's here.
I'll be right over.
I'm not staying here.
Well, meet me in the hallway where we were doing the photo shoot, okay?
Oh, the one where the guy tried to kill me?
I'll be there in 10 minutes.
He's at a toilet. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know why they pulled back. He's got his pants down around his ankles and everything. They show the whole thing. Like they don't. That was a choice they made, to have this guy taking a crap instead of like doing literally anything else. He's taking a crap. And like as they transition out of that scene, they add a toilet flush sound effect that's really canned and terrible, but they cut it off as the scene transitions out. They don't let like the full flush happen, like to transition.
10 minutes.
Would have been a terrible transition sound, but they could have like had that flush and then like it dissolved to the next scene, or like or cut to the next scene with the flush over it. Instead, they go flush it. And then it cut. Once again, in editing and in the way they shot it, there's absolutely no padding in any of these cuts and transitions. Like there's no like space to breathe. A sentence happens, stops happening, and then cut to the next scene, and then a sentence starts again. There's no like in and outs to a scene, which you kind of should have. How do you know about the slime?
And how do you know about the slime?
West Side Slasher isn't human; it's an animal.
You're full of it.
You know I'm not.
So we find out right here that the daughter, and hence the photographer, has a bit of a problem in the flashback when she goes, "When my head hurts, I don't remember so good."
Maybe when my head hurts, I don't remember things so good.
You know when we go to Grandma's in the springtime?
One of the best lines ever read by anyone in cinema ever. The dad describes her like a tree that changes.
You are like a tree.
I don't know. We now know that she's some kind of monster thing, and she changes so ham-fisted. And then we kind of find out that she's like a werewolf woman. Werewoman wolf. Werewoman. She's a werewolf woman. Wolf woman. Not a wolf man. She's a wolf woman. And, she's the one who's killing people too. I guess there was another murderer, and I guess the twist was that there's two murderers, and she's one of the murderers, I guess. I don't know. It's so shitty. So the werewolf woman is now trying to attack cop guy, hero, and he's like the ducks. He's shucking and ducking. Out of the way of her like swipes, and it's the funniest thing ever. I'm gonna have to include the clip of that here. He grabs her, and at least they establish, they do a shot up to this like hook that's for some reason in the room. He hangs her, wolf woman, by this chain that they also had established earlier that she always wears, this pendant. Hangs her by that to death. But not quite, because she's still alive when he takes her down. Hanging her was enough to change her back from a werewolf. I've never heard of that being part of the story. Usually you need I think it's like a silver bullet or something. You need some kind of special silver or it's not garlic, that's vampires. You need silver, I think, to kill a werewolf. And they don't establish that the trinket was silver, so that doesn't make any sense. He hangs her by this thing that looks like it's gold, and then she turns back from a werewolf, and then he takes her down. She's still alive.
I remember things now.
I'll go for help.
No. Father made me do it. Sorry.
And then she dies on the ground, like after talking some more. I don't know if you guys are doctors. I don't know if there's any doctors out there that want to comment, but you don't usually die of asphyxiation after you've been unasphyxiated. So, just for sake of argument, she's losing the air to her body, turns back from a werewolf, doesn't quite die, is taken down, like survives that, and then dies. I mean, maybe it's happened once in human history. I don't know enough about it. But I can tell you it's so uncommon that it's such a stupid choice for them to have made. Like, why couldn't, like, he have some kind of silver something? Anything. Come on. Like, anything, please. Nothing happened. Nothing good happened. It was so terrible. Real quick, we get back to Creepy Writer Guy and Pizza Girl.
Oh, that poor girl. You almost made me scream and cry at the same time.
Well, thank you. So, did you figure out that ending? You are the jumpy one, aren't you?
Creepy Writer Guy throws some shade at Stephen King, says he's better.
Well, fortunately for me, most American readers are not so intelligent. If they were, Stephen King would have had to quit years ago.
Oh, you're much better than he is.
I know.
I've read some Stephen King books, and I can tell you he's not. I don't know if it was the director or the writers of the film throwing shade at Stephen King. Really undeserved, because, I mean, this pile of garbage doesn't even stand next to Stephen King's worst, which is probably Dreamcatcher. Doesn't even hold a candle to how crappy that movie was. Or, I mean, the Pet Sematary movie was terrible compared to the book, which was great. And those movies were 100 over Oscar worthy than this pile of stinking, hot, flaming trash. And then we come to find out that this dude is the reason for all of these stories happening in the first place.
I may make some minor changes in my tales to protect the innocent, as they say, but the basic stories are as they happen.
Look, I understand all writers have to project themselves onto their characters, but...
You still don't get it, do you, Dana? I don't project, I live, I experience my stories. Having different professions, different identities is really no different from acting. As long as you believe what you are, other people will too. Confidence, that's the key.
We kind of got this creepy vibe from him all along that he was going to end up being sinister. He telegraphed it so hard you'd have to be blind not to have seen it. He says that all of his stories are true and that he's been in all of them. In the very first one, he was the guy that dated the murderous woman and then the guy. He was that guy in that story. He doesn't explain who he was in the second story. Oh yeah, he does. He says he's the guy who gave information to the first cop. He admits that all of these stories are true, number one, and that he's in all of them, number two, and that not only that, he collects the things.
You said you wanted to add that Angela thing to your collection. Are you trying to tell me that all the things in your stories are real? That's not possible.
Oh, it most certainly is possible, Dana. You see, I have been collecting things for a very long time. It's my one true passion. This is crazy.
And the things are his friends, and that's he kills all of the people. He needs to feed the pizza guy every once in a while to him. And that a girl's not as good because it's more fat and not a lot of meat. Very misogynist again.
Once a month my things get hungry. That's when I order pizza.
They eat pizza?
No, of course not. They eat the boy who delivers the pizza. That's why I was so shocked to see you. You see, boys make better meals. They have more muscle on their bones, less fat. But you look healthy.
And then okay, so whatever. This guy's gonna kill the girl, throws her into his garage, which I guess leads to a basement. First of all, he's in a residential house, and he has an industrial basement that looks like it's in the bottom of a big building.
I've got a little prime rib for you tonight, my beasties.
So that makes absolutely no sense. I don't know. That would never happen. I don't know why it's in this. It seems like he's got a military-level tunnel system under his house, including like steam rooms and vents and boiler rooms, stuff that would be in an industrial building of some sort or some kind of commercial building in the cities, but not in a house. And he has all this shit. So anyway, she gets in there, and he's sitting there against the door waiting to hear her die, but doesn't hear anything. strange. He goes into the room that leads down into his subterranean basement, which we had seen in the very beginning opening scene of him feeding somebody to his little beasties in there. So that's the connection from, you know, beginning to end. He goes down and he's like, hey, where are you? I don't hear anything. And then, I forget exactly how it happens, but he gets like trapped in a corner, finds that this woman the whole time had been playing him. She comes out and saying, like, she knocks him out or something like that. Has him tied to a chair.
How are you still alive?
You're not nearly as clever as you think, and you're not nearly as good an actor as I am.
Now she's saying, oh, I was in on this the whole time. My sister was the one that you killed in the first story, and I'm here to get revenge on you.
You knew my sister. As a matter of fact, you conspired with her to kill her husband. Of course, Stacy didn't realize that you and Dexter were actually an item at the time, and were in fact plotting against her.
Oh my God.
It's the ultimate irony, I suppose, that you chose that particular story to tell me tonight. Or maybe it's just fate.
All this for that conniving bitch.
She may have been a conniving bitch, but she was my sister.
And not only that, I collect things too, but the things I collect are bigger things. And those things made a snack of your things, and now my things are gonna kill you.
Wait. You haven't told me how you survived my things down here.
You're an arrogant fool, Dean. Do you really think that you're the only one who travels the world collecting things?
You mean you?
That's right. Except the things I've collected are bigger and stronger and meaner and a lot hungrier than yours. I made sure they got down here before I arrived with the pizza. As a matter of fact, your beasties were just an appetizer. You're the main course.
That's the end of the movie. I'm sorry. So that was Things 2. There's more to talk about, but I really don't even want to because it was so stupid. I really wish Kenny was here to have watched this with me because I think he would have really enjoyed how shitty this was. Maybe I'll do a secondary viewing with him just to maybe talk about some of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about in this viewing right here. So yeah, Things 2. Happy Halloween or post-Halloween whenever you see this or watch it. I'm probably uploading it after Halloween anyway because, again, COVID's happening and there's more important shit going on. My day job kind of demands some of my time. That said, it's been a while also since I've released an episode. I'm going to try to get some of these out as often as I possibly can, but I'm sure you all understand that it's, under these circumstances, not so simple. That said, I'll have something outside of the horror genre for you next time. Maybe a Thanksgiving movie, maybe a Christmas movie. We'll see when I get to shoot again. I'll be moving soon, hopefully, so I'll have a new studio to shoot in. And, yeah, we'll come back at this with a renewed energy and vigor and do some real fun stuff here in the near future. If you have any movies you'd like me to talk about or suggest, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I can see if I can get to them eventually, especially if I can find them on VHS. And thanks everybody for watching. Have a happy and safe rest of the year if I don't see you beforehand. And have a good one. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching Video Hell Show. See ya.
Skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock